Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the joint meeting of the Glendale City Council and Glendale Housing Authority for January 30th, 2024. May we have roll call for the Housing Authority?
Yes, Housing Authority members Ajinian,
Here.
Asadarian.
Here.
Brotman,
Here.
Divine,
Here.
Kasakian, Parazian,
Here.
Chair Najarian.
Here. And Mayor Brotman is nursing a sore throat at the moment, so he's bestowed the duties to run the meeting on myself. Let's have roll call for the City Council, please.
Council members Asadarian,
Here.
Divine,
Here.
Kasakian, Najarian,
Here.
Mayor Brotman.
Here.
Thank you. May we have your report?
Yes, the agenda for the Tuesday, January 30th, 2024 joint public meeting of the City Council and Housing Authority was posted on January 25th, 2024 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
Thank you. And would you please read in the first item?
The first item is community development regarding execution of a letter of loan commitment and lease option with EAH Housing for a 68-unit affordable rental housing project for seniors at 426 Piedmont Avenue and 507 Naranja Drive. Resolutions approving a cooperation agreement between the Housing Authority and the City of Glendale for the purpose of Housing Authority administration of PLHA program funds and approval of a resolution of appropriation for Home-ARP program funding in the amount of $2,181,500 for 426 Piedmont Avenue and 507 Naranja Drive. A Housing Authority motion authorizing the Executive Director to execute a letter of loan commitment and lease option with EAH Housing for 426 Piedmont Avenue and 507 Naranja Drive. B, City Council resolution authorizing the City Manager to execute a cooperation agreement between the Housing Authority and the City of Glendale for the purpose of administering PLHA program funds and designating individuals to sign and approve PLHA program documents. C, Housing Authority resolution authorizing the Executive Director to execute a cooperation agreement between the Housing Authority and the City of Glendale for the purpose of administering PLHA program funds and designating individuals to sign and approve PLHA program documents. And D, Housing Authority resolution of appropriation in the amount of $2,181,500 for the funding of 426 Piedmont Avenue and 507 Naranja Drive.
Thank you. Mr. Galanian.
Yes, good afternoon, Mayor Brotman, members of City Council, and members of the Housing Authority. We are excited to bring this item forward for your consideration, as this would be the fourth affordable housing project in the recent years that this Housing Authority has approved. This would be for a 68-unit development, obviously affordable housing for our seniors, the most vulnerable in our community. With that, I'll turn it over to Mike Fortney, our Deputy Director of Community Development, for the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Galanian. Mike Fortney, Deputy Director of Housing. Good afternoon, Mayor Brotman, City Council members, Housing Authority Chair Brotman, Housing Authority Board members, and I guess a shout out to Mr. Najarian for subbing in for our Mayor and Housing Authority Board. So the item in front of you is 426 Piedmont Avenue and 507 Naranja. It's the essentially the letter of loan commitment and the lease option. It's with the developer that you selected on October 10th with EAH Housing. We also have a cooperation agreement. It's more of a cleanup item really than anything. I have the worst luck with this. There we go, great. Okay, so we'll just call the project 426 Piedmont Avenue. It is an existing 112-bed senior assisted living facility. It's been vacant for at least 3 years now. The project is to convert it to 68 units of affordable housing for rental for extremely low, very low, and low-income housing for seniors. We have 21 studios and 46 one-bedrooms, and then we have a single 1 2-bedroom unit, manager unit. So we have 45 total parking spaces that are already existing. Again, you approved the E&A with EAH Housing back on October 10th. We are only asking for $2,181,500 in additional funds, and that comes from Home-ARP, a one-time allocation that we got from HUD to put into the project, along with $11,900,000 that we've already spent to acquire the property. This is the property. It's essentially going to look very much like it exists today. There'll be some changes to the landscaping. We have to finish the roof. We'll put a photovoltaic system on top of the roof. We are trying to achieve LEED Platinum. But essentially, the project as it exists today is what it's going to look like when we're done, with some definite landscape improvements. So the previous owners had gone through and really did a beautiful job rehabilitating the building on the exterior. And they didn't get very far on the interior before they sold it to the Housing Authority. So we're targeting units between 30% and 60% of area median income. So to give you an idea, the income limit for 30% AMI for a single person is $26,490. Upwards of $34,000 for a three-person household. Highly unlikely we'll have any three-bedroom or three-person households in any of these units. It'll be one or two, most likely. But we want to put that there just to give you that information. We won't target anybody over 60% on this project. And if you recall in the RFQ, we had tried to achieve a minimum of 15 units at extremely low income, or 30%. We actually got 21. So we were able to achieve more extremely low units in this project than we had originally anticipated. So the least expensive rent on a studio would be $450 after the utility allowance is deducted. A little over $500 for one bedrooms at extremely low income. And then at the very high income range of 60%, a one bedroom would cost upwards of $1,348 per month. So very, very affordable. I think the average AMI that we're targeting on this project is 45.6% AMI, which is a pretty good AMI. And of course, these numbers are going to change a little bit between now and the AHA, which I hope to bring to you in October, November of this year. But this is essentially what we're looking at. And just to kind of go through the sources, if this gets approved today, typically the first round of tax credits is in March. They moved it up a month. So we're really under the gun to get this thing done because the tax credit application is due February 13th of this year. So just in like 2 weeks. So we're applying for a little over $22 million in tax credits. We have the $11.9 million that we already purchased the property with, right? And then the $2,181,500 that we're going to put in as part of our home ARP allocation. The rest, the general partner equity of $100, that's just a typical, that's just an industry standard for these projects. So total sources, we're looking at almost $38 million for this project. And then in terms of the letter of loan commitment, again, we have 68 units, 67 of which will be affordable. One will be a manager's unit. We're targeting 30 to 60% area median income. It has to be for a minimum 55 years. We won't know the actual term of the lease and the affordability covenants until I bring you the AHA later in the year. There's something called a true debt test that we have to do that determines how long that lease has to be in place in order for them to repay our loans. Again, the money that we put into these projects are loans, they're not grants. So that could be oftentimes 65 or even 75 years. So, but we'll know that number when we bring the AHA to you later. So the total assistance from the authority will be $14,081,000. Again, that's the $11.9 million that we already purchased the property with, plus the home ARP dollars that we're putting in. Again, this will be structured like everything else. We will own the land, we will long-term lease the property, and it'll be, our loans will be in the form of a residual receipts loans. So the lease option is good through the end of this calendar year. It will expire if EAH was not able to receive the tax credit award either this round or the second round in this year. So, so they're getting 2 bites of the apple, if you will. Everything else is almost kind of repetitive at this point. I did want to talk a little bit about the cooperation agreement. Many, many years ago, in fact, decades ago, We have something like a cooperation agreement between the city and the housing authority for home dollars, because the city of Glendale, not the housing authority, is the participating jurisdiction. It's the city that actually receives home dollars. So we have an agreement in place for the city and the housing authority to cooperate so that the housing authority administers the funds. The PLHA funds are brand new to us. So we have a similar agreement in place that we're asking for your approval now that allows the housing authority to administer those funds. So again, the cooperation agreement again is just to allow the housing authority to administer those funds. So fiscal impact, it will be 2.18 million in the home ARP dollars, 2,181,500. We have probably 2.3 million more in home ARP dollars that we could have put into the project, but it would have triggered prevailing wage, which would have driven the total development costs up by 25% of hard costs. So it just wasn't, so we'll have to use that balance of home ARP dollars that we have on our next project in order to avoid the prevailing wage on this project. And let's see, so if this is approved today, EAH will go for their tax credits in about 2 weeks. And we are hoping to bring the Housing Authority, the AHA, October of this year. And we'll have all the final deal points made and brought to you. And then hopefully break ground before the end of the calendar year. We hope to complete the project by the end of 2025, which is also when 515 Pioneer Drive is anticipated to be completed. But no later than probably spring of 2026, we'll have the project completed. And these are the alternatives, which basically allows you to make any change that you wish on the letter of loan commitment or the lease option. And that's my presentation. I'm more than happy to give you or answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fortney. Questions?
It's more of a question concern.
Councilmember Astern?
The rent amount based on the AMI, I was just looking it up. Social Security benefits in 2024 are maximum $943 for a single person and $1,415 for a couple. And so when I look at these rent prices and the AMI that we've applied, given that this is specifically for seniors, how are they supposed to afford this rent if they're on SSI?
I will have to take your word for it on the Social Security incomes. I don't know it off the top of my head. But we have quite a few senior projects, affordable housing projects, with targets, rents targeted at this, or even higher AMIs, and they're able to make the rent. It does not sound like a huge delta between the amount of rent that they would owe versus how much Social Security that they would bring in.
Right, but that also requires for them to have food to eat. And
Right.
I mean, it's not, is there a way for us to be able to adjust the rent or change up the AMIs before going into this agreement?
Now, really, no, but between now and the affordable housing agreement, there will be an opportunity for us to address those AMIs and those rents. So we do have a few months to try to do that. But the project does have to pencil. But we can try to adjust some of those rents between now and the AHA.
I mean, I would like for us to, at some point, explore that. Maybe you can get more information on the SSI and other benefits that they receive.
Yes, of course we
I
can.
just get concerned that, with the prices that we have listed here, we're trying to build affordable housing, but, the amounts don't add up for them to be able to do anything else, be able to meet the rent without assistance from family and whatnot.
Sure. I appreciate you bringing that up. I do want to mention, we have a number of senior affordable housing projects that are already fully leased. We have 2 more projects down on Broadway, both senior projects, with rents that are actually, their average AMI is actually higher than this project, Those will be completed in the next few months. We will lease up. So between now and the time we come back with the AHA, I'll also kind of give you some of that background information too, to show you how folks are earning their Social Security income and still managing to make rent and pay for food and things like that. I'll try to bring that as part of the AHA, a really fully comprehensive report.
Okay. Otherwise, I'm thrilled and I'm excited for this, so.
Any other comments?
I got a question. Mike, I'm just curious, out of the 68 units, only one unit is the manager's unit, which is a two-bedroom? What if the manager is a single person?
It's possible. And this is industry standard, this is on every project we've ever built. We always provide a two-bedroom manager's unit because the manager isn't subject to the income limits, not subject to the senior restriction. Usually oftentimes I should say, it's a married couple that may have kids or may have kids down the road. So we provide that two-bedroom manager unit, but it is very possible that the manager that we hire for this project is a single person.
And wasn't ever taken account, maybe in the preliminary drawings, to have more of, maybe extra units, rather than 67, make it 65, and make it 3 more units of 2 bedrooms?
Oh, okay. So the direction that I was under the impression when we granted the ENA on October 10th, I had given the City Council and the Housing Authority an option to actually reduce the number of units from 67 to 64, not to achieve a larger bedroom count, but to achieve a slightly larger average square footage of the units. And it seemed pretty clear to me that the City Council and Housing Authority wanted more units. So when I brought the project to you in October, we had a grand total of 67 units. We actually have 68 now because we were able to find some dead space and move some walls around and achieve an additional unit. So the direction that I found myself under was try to maximize the number of units in the project.
Yes, Mayor Brotman.
The 558,000 per unit cost,
Yes.
can you just remind us, how does that compare? Is that on the high end?
For Glendale, it is. When you're talking about total development costs, we have been able to achieve about $500,000 per unit, total development cost, land, acquisition, the whole enchilada. So this is roughly 10% higher. But again, the interest rates are just unbelievable. And although we have seen some relief in hard cost construction, it's still much higher than pre-COVID. So this 557,000 per unit is not really that surprising. 68 units, it's not a huge project, but there is some economies of scale there. But it's roughly 10% above our average.
And what's Pioneer again?
Pioneer is very low.
Yeah.
Off the top of my head, I want to say it's like $380,000 a unit. But we have a massive economies of scale on that project.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
340 units.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Harrower is high, right?
Harrower is closer to $750,000 a unit
Yeah.
because it was ACT rehab, adaptive reuse, historic preservation. We're achieving a lot of things with Harrower.
Okay.
Yes. And it's a 40-unit project, so there's no real economies of scale on that.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Yes, Ms. Parazian.
I got confused. Was there any two-bedroom in the previous building?
In the previous senior projects?
Yes.
No.
No.
Only the manager unit. We don't build 2-bedroom units in senior projects. It's typically only studios and 1-bedrooms. Oftentimes, it's mostly studios. In this one, we were able to achieve more 1-bedrooms than studios. But no, we've never, as far as I can recall in the 18 years I've been with Glendale, I don't think we've ever done a senior affordable housing project where an affordable unit for seniors was a 2-bedroom. It's always been studios and 1-bedrooms.
Okay.
Okay, do we have any people calling in?
We don't have any cards or callers.
Okay, very good. So what we have is a Housing Authority motion at 1A, C, and D. Would someone like to move that? A move by Asaturian. Is there a second for Housing Authority? Hajinian. Let's take roll call, please.
Housing Authority members Ajinian,
Yes.
Asadrian,
Yes.
Brotman,
Yes.
Divine,
Yes.
Kasakian, Parazian,
Yes.
Chair Najarian.
Yes. And 1B is the council resolution.
So moved. Second?
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Council members Asadrian,
Yes.
Divine,
Yes.
Kasakian, Najarian,
Yes.
Mayor Brotman.
Yes.
Thank you. That concludes our business. Is there a motion to adjourn for council?
Move to adjourn.
Second?
Council's adjourned. A motion for housing.
Move to adjourn.
Move it. Second.
Okay.
Thank you.
Housing is adjourned. Okay. Let's go to our next meeting. For January 30th, 2024. May we have roll call, please?
Yes, council members Asadrian,
Here.
Divine,
Here.
Najarian,
Here.
Kasakian, Mayor Brotman.
Here.
And Mayor Brotman is nursing a sore throat, and I will be conducting the meeting this afternoon. May we have your report?
Yes, the agenda for the Tuesday, January 30th special public meeting of the City Council was posted on January 25th, 2024 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
Thanks. And what's the first item?
First item is community development regarding land use and circulation elements, project update and proposed amendment to the existing contract with De Novo Planning Group, contract number 8000769, to update the scope of work to add preparation of the general plan environmental justice element as required by Government Code 65302H and to extend the timeline for an additional 18 months. A, motion accepting the status report on the preparation of the land use element and circulation element updates and to accept the council comments thereon. B, motion approving a contract amendment with the Novo Planning Group in the amount of $199,580 for a new not-to-exceed contract amount of $1,081,309 to include preparation of an environmental justice element of the general plan and extend the timeline term.
Thank you. Mr. Galanian?
So Mayor Brotman, member City Council, I'm just going to go to Vilya Zamataitis, our Deputy Director of Long Range Planning, to present this item.
Thank you, Mr. Galanian. Council members, Mayor Pro Tem Najarian, I would like to actually present to you Amanda Tropiano, Principal with De Novo Planning Group, to provide the presentation on our land use and circulation element updates.
Welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. Thank you for having me here this afternoon. I am excited to present an update on the land use and circulation element, as well as an overview of the new requirements related to addressing the topic of environmental justice. The city's land use element was last comprehensively updated in 1986, so it is time for it to be refreshed and have a comprehensive look, setting the stage for development over the next 20 years. The circulation element was updated a bit more recently, but still in the late 1990s and 1998. So again, a huge opportunity to revisit the topic of transportation and mobility in Glendale and address it looking into the future. Since that time, there have been various general plan amendments, specific plans, and community plans approved that can be integrated and folded into the update of these two elements to create consistency among the city's long-range planning projects. There have also been a number of new state requirements related to the specific topics that need to be addressed within the context of these elements, and then an opportunity to really look at other existing plans and programs that the city has undertaken or is in the process of undertaking and create that synergy, such as efforts on the pedestrian plans, the transportation master plan, bicycle transportation plan as well.
Climate adaptation plan.
And climate adaptation plan, yes. And other general plan elements that are being updated, and your local hazard mitigation plan. The list goes on. So an opportunity really to think about all of those being integrated together. Specific to the land use element, we have a number of objectives we're hoping to achieve through this comprehensive update to the element. It includes simplifying the city's land use definitions, so creating better consistency in the implementation and understanding of how you describe land uses and where they occur within the city. Streamlining, in other words, shortening the city's policy direction, addressing specific topics related to the mix of different types of land uses and how they work together, the location of where future growth would be best accommodated, how different land uses work together or are compatible, topics related to urban and community design, and the way that land use decisions can support the city's local economic development. We'll also be able to include as part of the element very specific goals, policies, and actions that the city is intending to undertake in order to achieve the goals and policies of the element. The land use element does include the land use map, which will be updated as part of this process, and I'll speak to that on the next slide. And then, of course, complying with the more modern requirements of the California Government Code, and making the document easy for your staff, yourselves, and your public to understand through the use of graphics, charts, tables, and other design tools to really create an opportunity for everyone to understand what that document says. Specific to the land use map, we are looking to create consistency between the land use designations on the map and your current zoning or built uses. So over time, over the last 40 years, uses have developed on the ground in your community and have continued to exist that are shown as a different color on the map. So places where commercial has developed, where residential was planned, or vice versa. So being able to clean that up and understand where those areas of inconsistency exist. We also want to reflect decisions that the City Council has made on other long-range planning projects, such as your community plans, so making sure direction provided by the council as part of, for example, the North Glendale plan is integrated and reflected as part of this planning document as well. We also can resolve kind of some mapping issues for property owners that have two different designations or two different zones on their property. That can be really challenging to understand on how to implement that. So we have the opportunity to correct that through this process as well. We'll also be looking at special areas of the city where additional residential density may be warranted, particularly around your multimodal transportation corridors, such as along your bus rapid transit line. Looking at opportunities to create development at city-owned sites through the application of a city-owned residential overlay that would allow for multifamily development at city-owned properties, and creating a new designation labeled specific plan that basically recognizes that your adopted specific plans provide detailed land use guidance for special areas of your city, and the land use element map would defer to those documents to provide that specific guidance. Regarding the circulation element, our primary objectives include addressing the topic of complete streets, which is basically the intent to create a multi-layered transportation network for all users of all modes, of all abilities. So those include drivers, but as well as users of public transit, pedestrians, and bicyclists, understanding that persons of different backgrounds or needs have different mobility needs. So that's what we mean when we talk about complete streets. Looking at opportunities to improve the city's active transportation network, look at some more modern technologies like ride sharing, different opportunities to improve or increase carpooling, get people out of their own individual cars and figure out how to create a more efficient transportation system. Looking at traffic demand, so how do we balance different land uses to create a more balanced network of traffic demand on the city's roadways. Environmental health and air quality goals, so the role that transportation plays in improving local air quality and local community health. Addressing the topics of parking as well as goods movement, so how your goods move around your community safely. I did address the need to prepare a new complete streets layered network approach. So basically recognizing that all of these different users and transportation users have different ways to get around the community, and we can help set the stage for what those networks look like individually as well as in an integrated way. Identifying specific necessary network improvements, so areas where an additional bike facility is warranted to create a connection between, at a gap in the network. Illustrating the long-term roadway vehicular classification, so just like you think about land use 20 years from now, thinking about the role that roadways play 20 years from now, what types of facilities will they use? What will the roadway look like? What types of improvements would be necessary to help people get around safely? Identifying routes for emergency evacuation and goods movement. And then the same too as the land use element, complying with the government code, making it a little bit easier to read. So tied specifically with efforts to update the circulation element, we also will be looking at performance criteria for specific investments or improvements in the city's active transportation network. So when we think about ways to implement those improvements, we are looking at a number of performance criteria to determine the types of improvements that would be warranted and where those are warranted throughout the city. So some of the examples of the performance criteria that are part of that decision-making process include looking at the role to improve safety for all modes of travel, opportunities to reduce vehicle miles traveled, or VMT, existing and projected traffic volumes, understanding that potential street capacity, opportunities to improve safety, so looking at the collision history and opportunities to create better safe intersections and safe roadways, social and geographic equity concerns, transportation demand management or TDM requirements, street characteristics, so every street operates differently, what are the unique qualities of that street, as well as the implementation or the feasibility of the improvement. One new topic that we're presenting today is the new requirement provided in the government code to address the topic of environmental justice within the context of a city's general plan. So 40 years ago, the element of environmental justice was not one of the required elements of a general plan, but it has since been a requirement. It is required to be prepared when a jurisdiction updates two or more elements concurrently. I know that's a mouthful, but because you are updating the land use and the circulation element, this new requirement does direct the city to also address the topic of environmental justice. As part of that work, we are excited to continue to collaborate in a meaningful way with your community to understand the public's input on topics specific to community health, wellness, and environmental justice. And in particular, we will be addressing at a minimum 7 topic areas. Those include pollution exposure and air quality, access to equitable public facilities, food access, safe and sanitary homes, physical activity, community engagement, and how the city can prioritize the needs of disadvantaged communities. These 7 topics are provided in the government code and will be included as part of the city's new environmental justice element. So looking forward, we are, again, looking to collaborate and synchronize our efforts with the city's ongoing plans and programs. Those include the safety element update, the local hazard mitigation plan, the bicycle transportation plan, and the bus rapid transit or BRT plan, among others. We will be finalizing the draft of the elements. Those drafts will be shared both with the public and with the city council so we can understand where opportunities for improvement exist as part of that review process. And then preparing an issuance of notice of preparation. As part of this effort, we are preparing a brand new program level environmental impact report to support adoption of these general plan elements. Throughout the effort, continuing a multilingual public outreach campaign, including in-person and online opportunities to provide input early in the process, as well as review, comment, and provide feedback on draft work products. We will be looking, as part of this effort, to also update the city's transportation impact mitigation fee. That's always been part of the work program for us, but really understanding what that future roadway network looks like is important to determine prior to updating the fee. As part of the public review process, we'll be preparing responses to any comments we receive, both on the draft policy documents as well as the draft environmental impact report, and then bringing forward all of the material, including the response to those public comments, as part of a public hearing process with the Planning Commission and the City Council. That concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much.
I have a question. When you talk about the outreach, when do you plan on beginning that? Is it at the beginning, in the middle, at the end, all of the above?
There will be multiple touch points throughout the process, but the first would be in the spring of this year with in-person and online engagement specifically related to the topic of environmental justice, because that is a new part of this work program. So that will include detailed focus group meetings, conversations with stakeholders, public survey, which worked really well for our housing element update as well. We had a great turnout from that, and in-person opportunities at city pop-up events and other programs. We're also looking to create collaborative efforts with your local hazard mitigation plan and safety element update so we can explain to the public how those efforts work together. So starting in the spring, then once we have the draft work products available for review, that would be at the end of 2024, kind of another detailed effort at that point, and then the public hearing process early next year.
Thank you. Mayor Brotman?
Follow up on that. So you talked about the EJ element on that timeline. The other two elements, what's the timeline for those two?
We would be addressing those topics at the same time. We did conduct public outreach related to circulation and land use as part of our prior work efforts over the past several years. We will revisit those topics as part of this as well, but we have attended community workshops, hosted surveys, and gathered feedback on initial topics for those two as part of our work effort since 2020. But we'll be revisiting those as part of the same topic areas. So same schedule.
When will we see a first draft?
At the, I would say, fall of this year.
Okay. I have one other question. Do we have a map of the census tracts that we consider disadvantaged in Glendale? Is that something you can show us? Or I know it relates to Cal Enviro screen. Is there a certain color code that we're looking at?
Yes. So the California Attorney General actually just issued new guidance in the past few months regarding the way jurisdictions identify and define disadvantaged communities. As you indicated, the use of Cal Enviro screen has been a pretty traditional approach, and it is color-coded map that shows specific census tracts that are required to be considered disadvantaged. The new guidance from the Attorney General dictates that that is not in and of itself sufficient to determine all areas that may be considered disadvantaged or in need of environmental justice support. So as part of this effort, one of our first work tasks will be to start with the Cal Enviro screen definition and analyze any other areas that would warrant inclusion in this element. So that is part of the work program. But to start, we could certainly show a map of the Cal Enviro screen census tracts, and that is easy and color-coded.
Do you have that now?
I'm looking for it.
We will have it in the next few minutes. Yes,
Okay,
we do have a version of
interested to see
it.
what our starting point is.
Yes.
I think I have a general idea, but
It's primarily in South Glendale.
yeah.
So it relates primarily to median household income, and that is the strongest correlator of disadvantaged communities using the Cal Enviro screen. So generally, the southern third of the city is in, give or take, in that bracket and requires that. But the second layer that we want to analyze and consider are other areas that are subject to unique environmental pollution or burdens and are also low income. And there's a separate formula that we can look at to identify those census tracts as well.
Okay.
So we'll see how fast we can pull it up and if it can be here, or we can certainly share it at a subsequent update.
I have a question. Is an EIR going to be required for this?
It is.
And when will that be?
We intend to start circulation of the draft environmental impact report before the end of this year, so before the end of 2024, closing the public comment period in early 2025, and bringing the results of that effort forward to the public hearing process.
Are you doing the EIR?
We are.
Okay. Councilmember Asterian?
If we had some suggestions on land use, would this be the time that we bring it up to you, or for you to explore, or would that be at a later time?
To the extent that it provides that kind of framework, general objective guidance, we'd love to hear that feedback. We will be forward with specific recommendations on parcel land use changes or other areas of specific intersections or roadways that would require improvements. So that level of specificity we can address at a subsequent meeting. But in terms of major priorities, for example, around multimodal transit lines or in certain areas of the city, that would be kind of where we're at in the process right now. So yes.
With that, I have like two recommendations, and I,
Sure.
you know, if this is not the time, then
Feel free.
one is, you know, looking at Brand Boulevard, we see a lot of professional services in the main downtown area, which really create these dead zones between restaurants. We keep talking about how we want to make that a more like food, entertainment, arts kind of space. And when you have these professional services, you know, one after another, it creates a dead zone for, you know, until the next restaurant. And so looking at maybe how we use that, maybe it's a block, maybe it's 2 blocks, I don't know what that looks like, but being able to be more flexible with our ground level uses. And then I had the opportunity to take a tour at of our Rancho neighborhood this past weekend. And one of the things that was brought up, that part of our land use doesn't allow for them to have horse lessons or an academy in that area. There's something in our zoning. And, you know, they've asked numerous times as to why, and no one really has the answer. So it's one of those like outdated things from 1986 when I was 4 years old that has stayed.
I mean, at least we were alive when it was there.
You know,
so.
those are the two kind of main ones, but I mean, obviously the rest I wholeheartedly support.
Okay. Mayor Brotman?
Yeah, I do also have some similar
Great.
general suggestions. On the circulation element, I know the state has dictated that for EIRs, we now only use VMT, don't use level of service, but that we have some discretion on using level of service for local analysis. And my position would be to move away entirely from the A to F grading scheme that has been used for many years. It really is not very relevant anymore, and creates a lot of misunderstanding, I think. People thinking that an F is bad and an A is good is not necessarily the case. I would argue that an A is pretty bad because it means we've vastly over-engineered our roadways. In any case, I'd like us to consider kind of eliminating that from our toolbox, but I don't want us to entirely eliminate looking at the impacts on congestion or on travel time between segments when we're doing things like road reconfigurations. Because when we did the La Crescenta Avenue analysis, you know, being able to show the public that there's very little delay caused by our plans to do a road diet, I think was helpful. And in some cases, we may find that there are significant delays in those. That's something we do need to know. So I would want to draw that distinction between generally analyzing delay times and using this A through F rating system. And I have a couple more things. Hold on, sorry. Also, to look closely at curb space usage. Maybe you're already intending that, but we've heard, you know, there are issues now with all the delivery activity and the, you know, Uber Eats and Amazon, and we don't really have curb space necessarily allocated for those kinds of things, and it's creating conflict. On the land use element, I've been thinking a lot about missing middle housing, and I will refer to a book which I would encourage everybody to take a look at. It's actually not the kind of book you have to read front to back, but you can poke around it. I've learned a lot from this, and I mean, the basic point, as I'm sure you know, is we used to build a certain housing type in between single family and, you know, these large multifamily apartment buildings. You know, cottage courts, duplexes, triplexes, courtyard apartments. We've kind of stopped building those over the last several decades, partly because of our zoning and lots of other reasons. And I would like us to really look at that as a housing type that we encourage, especially adjacent to single-family neighborhoods. I'm thinking like where I live, right off of Cañada Boulevard. It's a single-family area, and you've got Cañada Boulevard, you've got single-family on Cañada, but that's kind of a high, you know, speed roadway. Now, I think we need to deal with that separately, but it is a place where it would be appropriate to have a mix of commercial activity and these kinds of buildings that are maybe 2.5 stories, that would transition really well. I think there are also opportunities for infill in single-family neighborhoods. Probably get more resistance on that, but I think, you know, and to get there, I would like us to kind of shift towards more looking at the form, looking at the building envelope, the size, looking for kind of house size structures, and moving away from dictating things like FAR, dwelling units per acre, things that are numerical density based, because what we should really care about is, does the form fit into the neighborhood? Is it compatible, as opposed to, is it one family or is it multiple families? And there are a lot of, I think, reasons why that's a housing type that, you know, would be really valuable, because it would allow maybe entry-level home ownership, and there are many other reasons why that's valuable. So I would like us to look at that. Some of the things, apart from zoning, that I think we need to consider is maybe relaxing some of the open space requirements that are really designed more for suburban environments, and also reducing or eliminating off-street parking requirements, because that generally is a barrier. And another thing, and these are not really my ideas, but things I've learned mostly from this book and talking to some people, is impact fees. I don't know if we do impact fees per unit, but that can be a discouragement for smaller units. So maybe there's a way to look at impact fees that are based on, you know, the size of the unit, as well as not just the raw number of units. So those are some things I would like us to look at. Yeah, that's basically what I have.
Okay. Are there any callers, Madam Clerk?
We do not have any callers or cards.
Okay. We have two motions at A and B.
I'll move A and B.
Or second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Council members Asadrian,
Yes.
Divine,
Yes.
Kasakian, Najarian,
Yes.
Mayor Brotman.
Yes.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Brotman, we had the slide up showing the map.
I
I don't know if
saw-
you
I
saw
saw
that,
it.
but
I
Is it
didn't
just
see
the darkest color?
yes,
Okay.
the brightest red, so.
The brightest red only.
So essentially along San Fernando Road, the southern tip of Glendale.
Yeah.
So, but we can provide more, as Amanda mentioned, we can provide more up-to-date.
Could you send us that map?
Of course. Thank you.
You ready? Okay. Good afternoon again. Welcome to the Glendale City Council meeting for January 30th, 2024. May we have roll call?
Yes, council members Asadrian,
Yes.
Divine,
Oh, here.
Here.
Kasakian, Najarian,
Here.
Mayor Brotman.
Here.
Will you please read the closed session items?
Yes, closed session item A, conference with labor negotiators. The city designated negotiators attending the closed session are Rubik Golanian, John Tachtalian, Michael J. Garcia, Jillian Van Meiden, Paula Adams, Amy Martin, Jason Bradford, and Laura Calty. The name of the employee organization is Glendale Management Association. B, conference with labor negotiators. The city designated negotiator attending the closed session is Mayor Dan Brotman. The unrepresented employee position is city attorney. Item C has been moved to the meeting for next week. Item D is conference with legal counsel pending litigation, claim of Tonyan, claim number 23-0231. E, conference with legal counsel pending litigation, claim of Escobar, claim number 23-0037. And F, conference with legal counsel pending litigation, claim of State Farm, Whipple, claim number 23-0008.
Thank you. Do we anticipate reporting out, Mr. City Attorney?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, anticipate reporting out on items, 1D and 1F.
Okay, we will recess to closed session.